Alright, so what's poppin', everybody? It's your man, Young Ida Costello, back again with another video. Now this video is going to be my very last top 5 or top 10 list for a very long time, and this list is going to be the top 10 albums of 2016. Now in 2016 we got hit with some great music, we got hit with some very sorry music, we got hit with some dope tracks, but we got hit with some dope albums also in the process. Now these albums that I chose for top 10 albums of the year are albums that I really loved. Some of my favorite albums, I really loved the production. Either I liked the lyricism on it or just thought that the feeling it gave me was super dope. But before I actually get into it, you already know I have to say that to anybody who put out any body of work in 2016, I just have to say congratulations to you, because putting out an album is definitely hard work. Putting out a consistent body of work, putting out an album, making songs on a consistent basis, that is not easy. So to anybody who's done it, no matter what my opinion on it was, hey, I gotta clap it up for you. Salutes to you, because you really deserve it. But you know, never mind that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the top 10 albums of 2016. Now for number 10, I have to give it to Vince Staples' Prima Donna. Now Vince Staples' Prima Donna was a very weird EP for me. Now this EP was a kind of EP that started off on a weird note. Like when I first started listening to it, I was like, yeah, I don't really know about this one right here. It's like the song started off really weird, the beat started off really weird, and that's one thing that I like about Vince Staples. Even though he's a real serious lyricist, when you listen to his songs, you don't really expect the beats to be the way they are. Like the beats are kind of outcasted in a way. But the big thing that really sold me on this album is the actual video that goes with that album. That ties everything together perfectly, and I love the meaning behind the album. One thing that's cool about this album that I think is super dope is that it has two sides. Like when you start listening to this album from the beginning, it starts as him being poor, trying to get to the top, and then he gets to the top and loses his way. But then if you listen to it from the last song to the first song, it starts as him already being rich, already having everything, and then falling into a deep depression, and then crazily at the first song he kills himself. And I think that that is a crazy way to have the album structured. I thought that that was crazy, and when I found that out, when I really read into it, when I did more research, that really blew my mind. But that was number 10, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into number 9. Now for number 9, I had to give it to Isaiah Rashad's The Sun's Tirade. Now The Sun's Tirade was a follow-up to the album Sylvia Demo, and I thought that Sylvia Demo was a dope mixtape. Now when we get into The Sun's Tirade, what I really liked about it was the flow of the album. The flow of the album was kind of slow, but then kind of peppy at the same time. I really like the slow beats, and I really like how the beats are just easy to drive to. Like you can easily just whip to an album like this. So just aesthetically from the outside, it was super dope. But then if you go into it and do a little bit of research, you really find out more that the album is worth. Like how the album had to take a couple of delays because he was fighting a drug problem, how he was battling Xanax, and you hear about how he had his heart broken, and you hear about all of that throughout the album. I just thought that it was super dope. A nice little laid back album for you to drive to. I definitely recommend it to you guys if you guys haven't checked it out before. But without further ado, that was number 9. So let's go ahead and get into number 8. So for number 8, I have to give it to Beyonce's Lemonade. Now Beyonce's Lemonade is probably the most mysterious album of 2016. Now this album, the way it was structured, the way the layout was, it was kind of structured like a Lifetime movies. I'm gonna keep it real, a lot of Lifetime movies are some trash, but I will say that the way that she did the album was super dope. Like there was a real story behind it. I really liked her narration throughout the album also. It's something about Beyonce's voice. She has like this real old young voice at the same time that just goes well over any slow song, especially when she's talking over it. And I will say that my mom is a Beyonce fan, and I grew up with her blasting Beyonce all the time, so I probably don't want to listen to Beyonce all of the time just because, like, I mean, I hear it all the time. But I will say that once I gave this album a chance, I was actually just sitting there and I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of a fire. My favorite songs of the album, I will have to give it to Sorry, of course, and also All Night. I think those two songs are super dope. Like I said, man, the story of the album is super dope. Jay-Z, what's wrong with you, player? You tripping, pimpin'. I feel like a lot of R&B albums are about heartbreak and how you got your heart broken and stuff like that. But I really like the way Beyonce went about this one. I thought that she went about it in a different way, and I thought that it was dope. So that was number 8. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into number 7. Now for number 7, I have to give it to The Weeknd, Starboy. Now The Weeknd, Starboy, has to be one of the dopest albums of 2016. Now, I'm just gonna go ahead and keep it real. When it comes to The Weeknd, before this album, I was not a fan of The Weeknd at all. I didn't like anything The Weeknd put out. And really, the only reason why I checked out this album was because I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a chance because I'm reviewing albums. Maybe I'll just give it a chance. And what's crazy is that it turned out that I love this album. I've heard numerous amounts of The Weeknd projects. Like, I heard his first mixtapes that everybody loved. And when I tell everybody that I didn't like it, they all look at me like I'm crazy. But I will say that The Weeknd Starboy is fire. I definitely do love the title track Starboy. I think that that is one of the best tracks on the record. But when it comes to this album, one song that I would say that you can't sleep on is True Colors. He went straight Michael Jackson inspired on that one. And I thought that that song was super dope. I definitely like the flow of this album also. I think that there are filler tracks everywhere when it comes to this album. I still think that it's a dope listen from top to bottom. And also the outro song, I mean, like, you can't get better than that. So that was number 7. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into number 6. So for number 6, I have to give it to Kendrick Lamar, Untitled Unmastered. Now this album was extremely dope. Now this album is an album that you kind of forget came out in 2016, but I will say that if you listen to this album on a regular basis, if you can fight through the usual moody Kendrick Lamar songs, there are some bangers on it, just like Untitled 2 and Untitled 7. One thing that I like about this album is that the whole album is just really raw. It's not really mastered all the way. It's not really musically engineered in the best way. It's kind of just raw. He kind of just lays it out there and just gives it to you like, here it is. And I kind of like the way he delivered it. One thing about Kendrick Lamar that you can definitely say that he has 100% of the time is lyricism. Like, you definitely have to take out a thesaurus or an encyclopedia just to really get a grasp of everything that this man is saying. The production on this album is very moody, and I will say that even though the production is super moody, I definitely like the production. It definitely fits Kendrick Lamar's style, and I just thought that that was a really dope album. So without further ado, that was number 6, so let's go ahead and get into number 5. Now for number 5, I have to give it to Chance the Rapper's Coloring Book. Chance the Rapper is one of those guys who have evolved so much. If you go from 10 Day, if you go to acid rap, all the way to this new album Coloring Book, he has evolved with his sound, with his vocal delivery, with his lyrics, with the production. It's all just gotten better. And I will say that Coloring Book is one of Chance's mixtapes that will define him as a household name. I love the live instrumentation because it sounds super dope. The constant features with choirs and Kirk Franklin and No Name and Jay Electronica, I just think go over extremely dope. Chance the Rapper's vocals mixed with his lyrics, mixed with the productions are just automatic sellers in my opinion. And I just feel like this album is definitely one of the best albums of 2016. It honestly should be a little bit higher up on the list, but there are some albums on this list that ain't playing no games, if you know what I mean. So that was number 5. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into number 4. So for number 4, I have to give it to Kanye West, The Life of Pablo. Now this album is an album that I have been debating on. For the final 3 spots, I've been debating on whether I should put this at 2, whether I should put this at 3, whether I should just keep it at 4. There are certain days where I feel like it's the 2nd album, then there are certain days where I feel like it's the 3rd album, but right now, I feel like it deserves to be at that 4th spot. I will say that every single song on this album is a hit. Every single song, in my opinion, is a banger. Kanye really did come through with this album since his last album, Yeezus. But one thing that I will say about Yeezus is that a lot of people didn't like it, but Yeezus is definitely one of my favorite Kanye albums just because if you listen to the whole album in its entirety, it's just super dope. And I also feel the same way about The Life of Pablo. I feel like from the first song, from that extremely dope Chance verse, all the way to the last song, Fade, which is kind of my least favorite song, I just feel like they're all bangers from top to bottom. They're all bangers. Kanye is talented in the way that he can take people and use them to their best ability, kind of like what Dr. Dre does. Like how Dr. Dre would take Snoop or Eminem and use him to his best abilities. I feel like that's what Kanye West did. Like he took Rihanna and in my opinion had Young Thug sounding the best that he's ever sounded in my opinion. The same with Designer, the same with Post Malone. I just feel like he really knows how to put artist potential together and really make it special. But that was number 4, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get into number 3. Now for number 3, I have to give it to Mac Miller, The Divine Feminine. Now this is an album that I feel like a lot of people slept on. I feel like a lot of people slept on The Divine Feminine and I don't know why. I would hear reviews of The Divine Feminine and everybody would be like, it's not that good, blah, 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 blah. But I feel like Mac Miller's The Divine Feminine is one of the best albums of 2016. I feel like it's a really nice concept album. You don't really hear a lot of people, especially a lot of rappers, making an album about girls, and I feel like Mac Miller did that, and he did it in the best way possible. When you listen to it, you hear a lot of live instrumentation, you hear a lot of nice poppy beats and moody beats at times, and I feel like he really just uses the beats to his best ability. But then again, I mean, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people like to blame stuff on the year, so if people weren't finding love in 2016 and you go smacking a love album in their face, they're probably gonna shun it, if you know what I mean. But this album is super dope. I really love the Anderson .Paak and the CeeLo Green features, and especially that Kendrick Lamar feature when that man is actually singing some notes. It's funny how every time Kendrick Lamar goes into the booth, he like RIPs everything. He just destroys everything. Like, this man was singing on the track, improvised, freestyled the singing, and still killed it. Like I said, this album was definitely a slept on album, but I recommend that if you guys haven't heard Mac Miller's The Divine Feminine and you guys are sitting here like, what? He got Mac Miller at number 3? Go check it out before you judge it. This album is extremely dope, I promise you. So for number 2, a lot of people are not gonna like this. I'm getting ready for the typage in the comment section. I'm ready for it, bro. I know it's coming. I know it's coming. Because for number 2, I have to put Drake Views. Oh, I hear it now. I hear everybody going at me. What? Drake Views over Birds? Drake Views over Travis Scott? Yes, man. I have to give it to Drake Views. A lot of people did not like this album. A lot of people did not like Views, but I will say that in my opinion, Views is fire from start to bottom. Views is fire. Like, oh my, like, and this is coming from not the biggest Drake fan. I'm not the biggest Drake fan, but I will say that Views is complete and utter fire. A lot of people didn't like the album because it was a lot of singing, but then again, I'm thinking, yo, it's Drake, so what else? Like, what else are you gonna expect? I feel like Drake is real moody on this album. It's kind of like a weird cloudy summer album that you can only play in the summer. I just think that that is dope. I don't know, man. I kind of like how Drake can get in his feelings in a rap. Also, songs like Views, Western Road Flows, all those are complete fire. Hype is extremely fire. Keep the Family Close. A lot of people don't like that, but I think that that song is fire also. Then you got 9. Then you got Feel No Ways. Then you got You With Me. Then you got Faithful. All heat. Okay. So if I'm gonna be honest, the only bad thing about that Drake album is probably that Too Good song with Rihanna. But other than that, all heat. All right, so that was number 2. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into number 1. So the number 1 album of 2016. This is an album that I played back to back to back. When I first heard this album, I did not listen to anything for 2 months. Yeah, I was still reviewing albums, but after I finished listening to those albums, I would toss those bad boys and continue listening to the album that I've been listening to. This album is extremely dope and is definitely my 3rd favorite album of all time. I hope you guys already know what it is, and I don't really care if you agree with me or not. It's just what it is. So my favorite album of 2016 has to be Frank Ocean, Blonde. Now this album, bro, every single song from the first song to like the 17th song, it's all fire. Like, it's all crazy. It's all extremely dope. Like, this album tells a story. Like, for the casual listener, yes, you can just pick this bad boy up and just listen away and listen away. But if you really want to dive into it, the story that's behind this album is extremely deep because every single song means something. And what I realized is that this album has 2 ways. Let's just say you're with a girl, right? And you're listening to this album in its entirety. The album is going to feel like one real happy album. It's going to feel real consistent with one another. And it's going to give you this real positive, happy feeling. But then let's say you and that girl break up, right? And then you start listening to that album again. That album has a completely different vibe to it. It's almost like all the songs have like a whole different sound to them when you're going through a little bit of something while you're listening to it. That's why I think that this album is dope, because when you're listening to it happy, it makes you even more happier. But let's just say you're listening to it while you're like in a different mood, and it increases the other mood that you're in. Like this is a real happy or sad album. And also, like, if you like research songs in this album or like research the production in this album, it actually backs up what I just said. My favorite songs in this album have to give it to Skyline 2. Also, Nikes is a dope song. To be honest, the whole album is a dope album. But that final song, that last song, Future or Free, I don't know no song in 2016 that beat that. Frank Ocean used his features on this album in an extremely weird way, but I think that it's cool. Kind of like how we had Kendrick Lamar ad-libbing in the back, but then also had like Young Lean singing the choruses. I just think that that's dope. I just feel like the way he made this album was perfection in my opinion. And this album deserves to be the best album of 2016. Even though this album was too late for a Grammy submission, he deserves to win a Grammy for that too. And this is also my third favorite album of all time. And if you guys are wondering what my top 2 favorite albums of all time is, just to get that out the way, Kanye West Graduation, Tyler the Creator Wolf, Frank Ocean Blonde is just what I like. But alright everybody, so that was the finale of my list. We've had top 20 singles, we've had top 10 albums, we've had top 5 shoes on feet, we've had top 5 most worn shoes. It's been great. The list week and a half has been extremely cool, and I got more videos coming soon, and I definitely hope that you guys have enjoyed this. What was your favorite album of 2016? Put that in the comment section down below. And without further ado, I got more videos coming soon, so I just have to say, hey, blessings, 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 and yeah. Chris